Hi, I'm Morgan, 31, and 5 months ago, I relocated in the dead of night with a backpack, a bruised rib, and a name change. Because 2 hours after my sister posted a TikTok from the parking lot of my safe house, someone was waiting outside with a bouquet of flowers, and a knife taped to the bottom of the box. The phone was warm in my hand. I had just opened the TikTok. It was my sister, Kelsey, twirling her blonde hair in front of the brick complex with unit numbers clearly behind her. The caption? Visiting my dramatic sister in her new hideout #fresh start #Sister's Day. I don't remember dropping the phone. Just the sound of my heartbeat punching my ears. I ran to the door, flipped the deadbolt, pulled down the blinds. Then I texted her, fingers shaking so badly I typed, "WTH, did you post?" 3 times before it made sense. Kelsey replied like we were just gossiping. "Oh, relax, Morgan. It's TikTok. It's not like I geotagged the apartment number." You did, I thought. You literally did. This wasn't just any apartment. This was the safe house Simone Richardson, my domestic violence advocate, helped me get into after Brandon broke my rib and smashed my phone because I got a text from my boss at 7 p.m. He said I was cheating on him with corporate trash. Brandon was unemployed. But not unarmed. I spent weeks documenting. Screenshots. Receipts. Photos of the holes in the drywall he punched 2 inches from my head. Simone helped me escape. Helped me disappear. And my sister just dropped breadcrumbs for 42,000 of her followers. I called her. She didn't pick up. I called again. Finally, her voice, half laughing. "Morgan, you're seriously overreacting. It's not like Brandon's a hitman. No, he's just a guy who choked me in our kitchen over a joke I made about dish soap," I said flatly. Silence. Then, "God, Morgan, you're so dramatic. You always make things bigger. You think everyone's out to get you." "No," I said, "but you just gave someone with a restraining order against him a 15-second walkthrough to my front door. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights on and the knife drawer open. At 2:37 a.m., my phone buzzed. A ring alert. I crept to the peephole. A man stood in the parking lot, holding something. I called Simone. She told me to stay inside. The police arrived 11 minutes later. The man had a bouquet of grocery store roses in one hand and, taped to the bottom of the flower box, a 4-inch paring knife. He wouldn't give a name. But when they ran the plates on his Mustang, the car was registered to Brandon's cousin. The next day, I was relocated again. New apartment. New county. New everything. I had a go bag, a trauma therapist, and a police report thicker than my driver's manual. And I hadn't spoken to Kelsey since. Until the court date. The courthouse smelled like bleach and stale coffee. I was sitting outside the family court hearing room, my lawyer, Lawrence Foster, flipping through a manila folder thick with evidence. Screenshots. Emails. The TikTok. The comments under the TikTok. A still from the Ring camera of the man with the flowers. Kelsey's voice still echoed in my head. "God, Morgan, you're so dramatic." "Ready?" Lawrence asked. I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. Kelsey looked shocked when I entered the courtroom. She was wearing this lemon-yellow blazer like she was headed to brunch, not a civil hearing for reckless endangerment and violation of safety protocols related to domestic violence protection orders. Her lawyer looked like he'd Googled cheap attorney fast and hit the first ad. She didn't meet my eyes. I wish she had. I needed her to see me, not the version of me she rolled her eyes at growing up, not the oversensitive, big sister who cried too easily, but me now. The one who hadn't slept more than 4 hours in months. The one who triple-locked her doors. The one who couldn't wear her favorite perfume anymore because Brandon said it made me smell like a whore in heat. And then threw the bottle at my head. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with short silver hair and a face like a medieval sculpture, sat down and motioned the hearing to begin. Kelsey's lawyer started talking about family misunderstandings and social media missteps, as if my trauma was just some deleted tweet. Then it was my turn. Lawrence handed the judge our timeline packet. I watched her eyes darken as she turned each page. "Ms. Hartwell," she said, turning to me, You're here to claim that your sister's social media post violated the protective relocation terms set by the court? Yes, Your Honor. She filmed outside the domestic violence safe house I was placed in by a licensed advocate. She identified the complex by number and name, and tagged the city. I was relocated 48 hours later for my safety. Did your sister know the nature of your housing? She asked. She was explicitly told not to share my address. I have the texts. I pulled out my phone and read them aloud, hand shaking. Kelsey's voice, in cold pixels. Honestly, if he really wanted to find you, he'd find a way. Your little hideout's not that secret. That's when the judge's face changed. Ms. Kelsey Hartwell, she said, cool and clear. Do you understand what it means to deliberately expose the location of a court-assisted domestic violence relocation site? Kelsey stammered. I wasn't trying to expose anything. My followers were asking where I was, and I didn't tag her name or unit number, so. But you did tag the city. The judge cut in. And the building number is visible in the footage. The camera pans up to it. I felt my stomach twist as Kelsey turned to glare at her lawyer, clearly hoping for rescue. None came. Then came the bombshell. Lawrence stood. Your Honor, if I may, we've submitted evidence of communication between the defendant and the plaintiff's ex-partner, Brandon Hartwell. The courtroom went still. Kelsey looked like someone had pulled the air out of her lungs. We have messages, Lawrence continued, showing Kelsey feeding Brandon updates about Morgan's mental state, her schedule, and suggesting, this is her own phrasing, that if she sees he knows where she is and nothing happens, maybe she'll calm down. The judge blinked slowly. Like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Kelsey opened her mouth. Then closed it. She finally spoke, but it was the softest whisper. I thought she was exaggerating. You thought I was exaggerating when I came to the ER with a cracked rib? I said. Kelsey's eyes finally met mine. And for the first time, I didn't see defiance. I saw fear. Not for me. For herself. The judge set down her gavel, not to strike it, but slowly, like it had weight. Court will reconvene in 48 hours with a formal ruling. In the meantime, Ms. Kelsey Hartwell, you are ordered to refrain from all social media activity relating to this case. If another post goes up, even passively alluding to your sister, I will hold you in contempt. Are we clear? Yes, Your Honor. Kelsey mumbled. When court adjourned, she passed me in the hall. She didn't say a word. But she looked me in the face. And I swear I saw something shatter behind her eyes. 2 days later, the courtroom was packed. Not with press or strangers, but family. Our parents, Linda and Dennis, had decided to show support for Kelsey. Their version of support? Glaring at me like I was the one who'd posted a survivor's address online and triggered an emergency evacuation. Mom wore pearls. Dad wore the disappointed face he'd mastered back when I dropped out of pre-law and chose social work instead. When I stepped through the doors, Dad gave me a curt nod. Not warm, not cold. Just PR neutral. Mom didn't look up at all. Kelsey sat beside her lawyer, her yellow blazer traded for a muted gray sweater. Her hair pulled back. No makeup. She was clearly going for humble, but it was the performance of it that made my skin crawl. Kelsey never left the house without fake lashes. This wasn't humility. It was image rehab. The judge entered. She looked exhausted. She adjusted her glasses and dove straight in. I've reviewed all submitted materials. This is not a standard case. It falls in a difficult overlap between civil recklessness and the weaponization of digital platforms in domestic violence contexts. However, she paused, and her eyes locked on Kelsey. There is no doubt that the defendant knowingly compromised a court-protected location by posting identifying visuals and geographic data. The TikTok was public. It was viewed thousands of times. It was up for over 72 hours. It led to an incident in which a man affiliated with a known abuser appeared at the premises. The plaintiff had to be relocated again at her own emotional, financial, and physical cost. This court takes that very seriously. My stomach nodded. I didn't know if I wanted justice or just acknowledgement. Something real. Something to say, yes, this happened. It matters. I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff. The judge continued. Ms. Kelsey Hartwell, you are hereby found liable for reckless endangerment and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The court orders you to pay $68,000 in damages. That includes relocation costs, therapy expenses, legal fees, and a fixed sum for emotional harm. This judgment is enforceable immediately. Gasps rippled through the gallery. My mother's face paled. My father stiffened. Kelsey's mouth opened like she was going to protest, but no sound came out. Furthermore, the judge said, this case will be forwarded to the state attorney's office to review for potential criminal negligence under our domestic violence protection statutes. Kelsey turned to her lawyer in horror. But I didn't. She started. No. The judge cut her off. You did. You posted. You ignored warnings. You dismissed the court's authority and put your sister's life in danger. That is not a misunderstanding. That is negligence. Gavel. Bang. Case closed. I stood there, frozen. The win didn't feel like victory. It felt like collapse. Outside the courtroom, I sat on a bench, head in my hands. I'd held it together for so long, for Simone, for Lawrence, for my own mental health, but in that moment the tension cracked. Then I heard it. A voice. You ruined my life. I looked up. Kelsey stood over me, trembling, eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. You ruined everything, she said. My job. My career. I had interviews lined up, Morgan. I had a brand deal with a wellness app. You could have let this go. But no, you had to make me the villain. I didn't make you anything, I said, standing up. You posted my safe house address to prove a point. And you lost everything because you refused to take accountability. Kelsey's voice dropped low, icy. You were always so good at playing the victim. Ever since we were kids. You needed attention so badly. And you needed to be right. I said. Even if it got me killed. Behind her, I saw our mother watching from across the hallway. She didn't come closer. She just stared at us, like she was hoping if she waited long enough, we'd both shut up and smile for a family photo. Kelsey walked away. That was the last time I saw her. At least in person. Online? Her entire persona imploded. Screenshots of the TikTok were everywhere. People reposted the video with duets. Commentary channels dug into the case. Domestic violence awareness advocates shredded her in explainers. Even the influencer marketing firm where she worked issued a public statement. We take survivor safety seriously. Ms. Hartwell is no longer employed with us. She went from brand collabs and gym selfies to working the counter at a suburban Starbucks. When I checked her profile weeks later, it had been wiped. No content. Just a bio that said, taking a break. Be kind to each other. I almost laughed. Almost. But then I remembered the night I sat with the lights off and a knife in my lap, listening to every creak of the hallway, wondering if the man with the roses had brought more than flowers. This wasn't content. This was survival. And she turned it into a joke. The weeks after the judgment felt like a strange kind of freefall. On paper, I'd won. My case was airtight. The damages were awarded. The restraining order stood. But inside, it didn't feel like triumph. It felt like waking up after a long illness, still weak, still shaky, still not quite sure if the danger had passed. The money hadn't even cleared yet. Kelsey didn't have it. Her attorney filed a payment delay request almost immediately. She'd already sold her car, a late-model Mazda CX-5, and moved back in with our parents. I'd seen the Facebook post from my mother. So proud of Kelsey for being strong through hard times. Family sticks together. No mention of what those hard times were. No mention of the lawsuit. Just a staged photo of Kelsey smiling with a latte in hand like she was the one recovering from trauma. I didn't respond. What would I say? Glad you're proud of the daughter who nearly got me murdered. Meanwhile, I was in my third location since leaving Brandon. This one was different, nicer, safer, quiet. A small gated building with a doorman and cameras everywhere. No one got in without clearance. Simone had helped me place a security deposit using part of a survivor relocation fund, and I just started working again, remotely, part-time. Claims processing wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and it let me rebuild something close to routine. I still checked my locks 3 times a night. Still jolted when a delivery knocked. Still carried pepper spray in my coat pocket and my therapist's hotline number in my wallet. But I was here. And I was free. Then came the email. Subject line: please read, from Mom. I hesitated. Every time I opened anything from my parents, it felt like stepping into a trap. It read, Morgan. This has gone on long enough. Kelsey is trying to rebuild. She's suffered enough. I know you're hurting, but this endless punishment doesn't help anyone. We've always loved both our daughters equally. I hope someday you can find it in your heart to forgive and come back to the family. Kelsey has been through so much. Please don't respond if you're just going to attack. I'm only reaching out to encourage healing. Love. Mom. I stared at the screen. Equal love. Kelsey has suffered enough. No apology. No ownership. Not even a reference to what happened. Just a blanket expectation that I would make things right again. I didn't reply. Instead, I drafted a message I'd been writing in my head for months. Dear Mom. I'm supporting myself through the difficult time your daughter created. If you want to talk about healing, start with accountability. Until then, I'll continue building a life where I don't have to fear the people closest to me. Morgan. I didn't send it either. Some messages are just for closure. Mine. Kelsey, for her part, stayed quiet. No more texts. No more TikToks. I learned through the grapevine that she'd applied to several agencies and been rejected across the board. No brand wanted her name on anything. A few of our old mutuals reached out to say they were sorry. That they'd had no idea. That they believed me now. One woman, someone I hadn't spoken to since a wedding 3 years ago, DM'd me. She used to say you were fragile in a way that made us think you were overreacting. I get it now. I'm sorry I didn't sooner. I didn't hold it against her. Kelsey had always been the charismatic one. She didn't have to lie outright, she just had to frame it. And I was always the too sensitive one. The one who read into things. The one who took things personally. But now people were finally reading what I'd lived. And it was ugly. At my next session, Dr. Castellano asked me if I wanted to pursue criminal charges. You'd likely have a case, she said. What Kelsey did may fall under third-party violation of a protection order. I thought about it. The police had already flagged the man from the parking lot. Brandon's cousin. They'd found texts between them that confirmed he'd been sent there. To check things out, and maybe scare her a little. Brandon was facing charges too, mostly from the restraining order violations, but this was new. I'm tired, I told her. She nodded. That's valid. You don't owe anyone more than what you've already given. Simone echoed the same. You got the restraining order. You got the civil ruling. You're safe. That's the priority. And it was. But what I really wanted, more than legal retribution, more than money, was a genuine apology. And I knew I'd never get one. That realization was grief. Kelsey wasn't sorry. Not truly. She was sorry she got caught. Sorry it cost her something. Sorry people saw what she really was when the filters came off. But not sorry for what she did to me. And as much as I craved closure, I finally understood something no therapist, no court, no advocate could teach me. Sometimes, the apology never comes. And you heal anyway. It was late October when the certified letter arrived. Thick envelope. Bold print. No return address. I stood at my mailbox holding it like it might explode. I already had a gut feeling. I went inside, sat at the kitchen counter, and slid it open with the same pair of scissors I kept next to my pepper spray. It was from Kelsey's lawyer. Inside, a formal notice of bankruptcy filing. Chapter 13. She'd petitioned for debt reorganization and had included the $68,000 judgment she owed me in her proposed repayment plan, at $218 a month for the next 5 years. I stared at the number. $218. The price of a single therapy session. Half of 1 month's rent. It would take 30 years at that rate to cover what she owed me. My first thought wasn't rage. It was this cold, hollow laugh. I read the fine print 3 times. The irony? She'd used the system, again, to protect herself from consequences. Simone called it before I even told her. She's doing what a lot of people do when they don't want to change. She's deflecting, legally and emotionally. It's about delay, not repair. I wasn't surprised. I was just tired. Brandon, on the other hand, had no such delay. His hearing was the following week, and I planned to be there. That morning, I pulled my hair back, wore a clean black turtleneck, and walked into the courthouse with my head up. It was the same courtroom where my civil case had been decided, but it felt entirely different now. This time, I was a witness. A survivor. Brandon sat at the defendant's table in a gray suit that didn't quite fit. His face was puffy. The arrogant smirk he used to wear like cologne was gone. He looked smaller somehow, like someone had drained the charm out of him and left only the bones of entitlement. His lawyer tried to make the case that the violations were emotional misunderstandings, that Brandon had simply wanted closure and had not intended harm. But the evidence said otherwise. The ring footage of his cousin. The texts. The witness statement from Simone. The court read aloud the entire restraining order violation timeline. One by one. 32 entries. I didn't cry. Not once. I just watched him shrink with every date, every time he crossed a line. Every time I said no and he still showed up. Then they called me to the stand. The courtroom was silent as I took my oath. Ms. Hartwell, the prosecutor began. Can you describe in your own words how the defendant's behavior impacted your safety and sense of well-being after the order was granted? I looked at Brandon. He didn't meet my eyes. I slept with a kitchen knife under my pillow for 2 months, I said calmly. I flinched at the sound of car doors closing. I couldn't go to the grocery store alone. I still can't listen to country music without shaking because it was always playing when he was angry. A pause. The courtroom was still. He made my body a war zone. And when the court tried to draw a boundary, he kicked it down like it was drywall, just like the walls he punched beside my head. The judge didn't say anything for a long moment. Then came the sentence, 14 months in county jail, with additional probation and an extended 5-year restraining order. It wasn't forever. But it was something. As they led Brandon out, he looked back at me. Not hate. Not regret. Entitlement. He still thought this shouldn't have happened. Still believed I owed him silence. But I didn't flinch. I met his stare and didn't look away until he did. When it was over, I walked out into the November wind and felt lighter. Not healed. Not fixed. But lighter. That night, I made myself dinner. A real one. Pasta from scratch with a glass of red wine. Waffles, my rescue cat, curled up on the windowsill watching leaves blow by. I stood in my tiny kitchen and realized I hadn't had a panic attack in over 3 weeks. I hadn't triple-checked the door last night. I hadn't rehearsed my emergency speech in the mirror that morning. This is what survival looks like, I thought. Not perfect. Not pretty. But real. Later, I opened my laptop and logged into my volunteer training portal. The Domestic Violence Center had fast-tracked my certification to become a peer advocate. My first session shadowing Simone was scheduled for next Thursday. When she told me the woman I'd be meeting was in her late 20s, leaving a controlling fiancé who tracked her through Venmo and a shared Spotify account, I just nodded. I know exactly how to help her, I said. Because I do. The first woman I ever mentored as a certified peer advocate looked just like I had 2 years earlier, too alert, too quiet, too good at minimizing everything. Her name was Talia. 27. Brown hair, pale skin, arms crossed like she could fold herself out of the room if she tried hard enough. She didn't want to be there. I could feel it from the second she walked in. Simone gave her the usual welcome, soft voice, open hands, no judgment. But Talia's eyes scanned the room like it was full of threats instead of help. And then Simone introduced me. This is Morgan, she said. She's been through it too. That's when Talia's eyes finally landed on mine. Really landed. You got out? She asked, voice barely audible. I nodded. Yeah. Took a few tries. And a few safe houses. But I'm here. She didn't say anything else. But the next time she came back, she sat beside me. That's how it starts sometimes. Not with a dramatic courtroom victory or a final confrontation. Just a chair. A presence. Proof someone survived long enough to sit still again. Working with survivors became the part of my life that didn't feel like repair, it felt like purpose. I wasn't Morgan the victim. I was Morgan who knows what the silence means, who can read a pause better than a paragraph. Morgan who walks someone to the courthouse and reminds them to breathe between floors. Morgan who teaches them how to document, how to photograph without drawing attention, how to write down dates and times like it's a diary with legal weight. It didn't fix what happened. But it built something new. One night, a few weeks into working at the shelter, I stayed late to help a woman named Becca file for an emergency protective order. She had 2 kids, no car, and a split lip. Her ex had taken her phone, but she remembered her iCloud password, and we used that to recover just enough messages to build a timeline. When we were done, she looked at me and whispered, "Do you ever stop being scared?" I was honest. "Not completely. But you stop being helpless." Later that night, I walked home under the orange glow of street lamps, and for once, I didn't look over my shoulder. My apartment felt still, but not like something was waiting. More like rest. I made tea. Fed waffles. Sat on the balcony wrapped in a blanket and watched the cars go by. I wasn't afraid of them. Not that night. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "Can we meet for coffee? I owe you an apology. Kelsey." I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no threat in it. No manipulation. Just a sentence I'd never expected. I didn't respond. Not immediately. Instead, I went to work. Reviewed cases. Ate lunch with Simone. Laughed at something one of the interns said. It took me until that evening to write her back. "No. I appreciate the gesture, but it's too late for coffee. Too late for closure. If you ever feel genuine remorse, prove it to someone else. Not me. I've already healed around the wound you gave me." She didn't reply. Maybe she never will. But I meant what I said. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's what you build when they won't. My parents still tried, from time to time. Invitations to birthdays. Guilt-flavored texts. My mother once sent me a picture of Kelsey in her green apron at Starbucks with the caption, "At least she's working. Doesn't that count for something?" I didn't answer. Because no, it didn't. Jobs don't make you a good person. Instagram doesn't mean integrity. Forgiveness isn't just about moving on, it's about making sure the door you lock stays locked. And mine is. Dr. Castellano calls it living forward. It's when you stop organizing your life around what broke you, and instead start planting around it. And that's exactly what I've done. I have a balcony now full of succulents, herbs, and one tomato plant I keep forgetting to stake properly. I have a weekend trip planned to Portland with 3 women from the support group. I have a standing coffee date every Friday morning with Simone where we drink overpriced oat milk lattes and rant about bad TV. I have peace. It's not flashy. Not something you can post. But it's mine. And it's real. The day I finally changed my last name wasn't ceremonial. No glass of champagne, no mirror selfies holding the paperwork. Just me, a clipboard, a DMV clerk with a permanent cough, and a quiet signature. I didn't go back to my maiden name. I didn't keep Brandon's either. I picked something new. A name with no history, no associations, no weight dragging behind it. Just something clean. Morgan Lynn. Simple. Mine. I walked out of that office holding the confirmation slip and felt something I hadn't in years. Not pride. Not even relief. Just space. Space between who I'd been and who I was becoming. Back at home, I opened a fresh document on my laptop and started typing. A letter. Not one I'd send, not one I'd even print. Just something I needed to put into words. Dear Morgan Hartwell. You didn't deserve what happened to you. Not the broken rib. Not the phone thrown across the room. Not the disbelief from your own family. You deserve to be believed the first time you said, "I'm scared." You deserve to be protected, not exposed. You deserve boundaries that were respected, not bulldozed by people who claimed to love you. You were never too sensitive. You were surviving a war no one else could see. And now? You're free. You've planted peace where silence once lived. Keep going. Love. Morgan Lynn. I didn't cry after writing it. I just saved it to a folder called Letters I Don't Send and went to feed Waffles. That evening, while folding laundry, I found one of Brandon's old shirts at the back of a drawer. A soft gray t-shirt that had somehow survived all 3 moves. I stared at it for a second, this ghost of a former life, then walked it straight to the garbage chute and let it go. Not everything needed to be boxed up and processed. Some things just needed to be discarded. Later, I opened my group chat with Simone and the other peer advocates. Someone had shared an article about safe house protocols and tagging locations on social media. One of the younger volunteers asked if she could run a workshop for local influencers about digital safety and survivor support. I offered to help. Simone messaged privately. "You're the reason we're changing the training manual next year. Your case made everyone rethink how vulnerable we are online. You turned something horrible into something that might save lives." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just typed, "Thank you for not giving up on me when I didn't know how to fight yet." She sent a heart emoji. Then another message. "You always knew how to fight. You just forgot for a while." It hit me harder than I expected. Because she was right. I'd always had that fire, quiet, steady, buried under years of being called too much. And now that fire had turned into light. Not rage. Not vengeance. Just clarity. One night, while closing up at the shelter, I saw a teenage girl sitting in the waiting room with her mom. Big hoodie, nervous hands. I smiled as I walked past, and she smiled back. Just a flicker. And I remembered myself at that age. Walking on eggshells in my own house. Keeping the peace. Swallowing the hurt because I thought that was what love required. And now here I was. Still standing. Still building. The next morning, I got a package in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Kelsey. Inside was a note. 1 paragraph. Written in blue ink, shaky like her hand couldn't quite keep up with her guilt. "I don't know how to undo what I did. But I know I lost you. And I think I finally understand why. I won't reach out again. I just wanted to say, I was wrong. You deserve better. Kelsey." I folded the note and put it in the back of the Letters I Don't Send folder. Not because I was ready to forgive her, but because she finally admitted what no one else had. She was wrong. And I was right to protect myself. Always had been. Last week, I stood on a tiny stage in the back of a community center in front of a crowd of maybe 30. Survivors. Advocates. Volunteers. The event was for National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and Simone had asked me to speak. I nearly said no. But I'm glad I didn't. I told them the truth. Not just about Brandon, or Kelsey, or the night I evacuated with my passport and a bruised rib. I told them about how healing doesn't feel like a straight line. It's more like waking up in a dark room and realizing the window's been open this whole time. You just forgot how to look up. I said. People think the hardest part is leaving. But it's not. It's learning how to stop apologizing for surviving. After, a woman hugged me with shaking arms and whispered, "Thank you for saying it out loud." I thought I was the only one who lost her whole family over this. I whispered back, "You're not. Because that's what I've learned. I'm not alone. And neither are you. I've rebuilt my life brick by brick. The quiet is no longer terrifying, it's peaceful. My apartment is warm. My cat is healthy and spoiled. I'm seeing someone now, very slowly. His name is Jonah. First date was coffee. Second was a walk. We've kissed once. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't demand anything. When I flinch at loud noises, he doesn't ask why. He just stays still. And that's enough for now. Kelsey never reached out again. The money will probably never be repaid. But the peace? That's been paid in full. Brandon will be out eventually. But he'll never know where I live. My name isn't in the system he used to track me. My phone is scrubbed. My locks are stronger. And so am I. People still ask if I'd ever go back. To my family. To the past. To the version of me that tolerated being second to someone else's comfort. The answer is no. I'll stay here. In the life I built from the ashes. I water my herbs. I file claims. I laugh with coworkers. I teach other women how to get free. Sometimes I still dream of the apartment complex with the numbers on the wall. I wake up sweaty, breath shallow, but I always ground myself the same way. I say it out loud. My name is Morgan Lynn. I am safe. I am free. And no one gets to take that from me again. Ever.